Hello.
Yay! A little worse for the wear, but you've recovered pretty well.
I have. Well, I'm still recovering, but
Yeah.
I
Still
live,
recovering.
so that's enough.
Eating solid food again. Thank goodness.
Barely soups.
It's a bit of a fright
Yep.
for us. But you watched some movies in hospital.
Yeah.
You didn't really get any sleep.
A couple that we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, indeed. So, Deep Water by Adrian Lyne, his first film in 20 years, which was pretty exciting. It kind of failed to make a splash.
Which is such a pity because, I mean, most of his other films are really good. I mean, some of them, 9.5 Weeks is a bit silly, but most of the other ones are very high quality in my opinion. So it's it's a pity that this one was such a letdown.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Adrian Lyne is amazing. Lolita, even though it's quite problematic and sometimes quite difficult to watch considering the age of the actress involved, is still one of my favourite films, along with Jacob's Ladder, which is not psychosexual at all, but a fantastic film in every possible way. It's just incredible. Sadly overlooked for critical acclaim, and it really should have. It's an amazing film.
Yeah, his films are always so well made. They're
well made.
They're quite stylish. He was in he used to make advertisements earlier on in his career, which is something similar to Ridley Scott, and they both sort of share that quite flamboyant stylishness. A lot of people would accuse them of being style over substance, but yeah, I mean,
there's substance too, especially to Jacob's Ladder and Lolita. And in fact, all of them have some degree of substance. They're interesting films.
And Decent Proposal is pretty good as well, I think. I mean, he has an interesting way of dealing with actors and relationships, and he's said that he kind of whenever he works with actors, he warns them that he's going to try and push them out of their comfort zone. And I think that really shows that you get quite different results compared to normal sort of relationship dramas or thrillers, in the same genre.
Interesting character studies. He actually apparently was sort of cheer on the actors during the sex scenes, so he'd be in the background being like, "Yeah, that was really sexy, well done," which is kind of odd and jarring, but kind of cute also in a way. Yeah. Well, because we don't have a heck of a lot to say about Deep Water, we're also going to review a bunch of these sort of psychosexual films of the 90s and very early
erotic thrillers,
which
he kind of he's definitely regarded as one of the directors of that genre, because he's made at least 3 or 4 films in that style.
Yes, so that's why we're dressed like this today. I've got my best sort of early 90s femme fatale kind of attire on. Yeah. So it's been quite fun getting ready for this one. We realise we've actually seen a lot of these kind of films. It's not like to be honest, I don't find these films like erotic or sexually sort of stimulating in any way.
They're quite funny.
But I really like the whole kind of detective noir aspect to a lot of them. There's always a bit of a mystery going on, and I enjoy the characters, and some of them are, most of them are quite beautiful to look at, and there's just something about those sort of 90s films that, I mean, even if you're not born in that sort of era and grew up with it, there's this wonderful kind of nostalgia to them.
Definitely.
I mean, there's nothing really, we haven't really been able to create anything kind of like that again to the same degree. They're very, stylized.
Definitely. For me, it's more the patina of these films that I react favourably to than the narrative. I don't really care so much about the characters, but I just love the sort of sheen of these 80s and 90s thrillers. It's very nostalgic, like you said.
Yes. No, I really like the characters, and I like all the drama that's going on in the stories, and I really like it when they get twisty and you're not quite sure what's going to happen, and it's all fun trying to figure out what is going to happen and who's doing what. I love that aspect of it. It's just a little bit more satisfying. It's like having a good decent chew on a meal rather than like just sipping down a smoothie. So back to the Deep Water. Yeah. I mean,
it's a bit of a mess, really.
It's a mess. I know some critics argue that if we don't like it, we don't really get it. And no, there's nothing. It's not that intellectual. It's not that academic. It's just a bit.
I mean, I do admire what how weird of a film it is.
Yeah, I did like the weirdness.
There's nothing like it, really. I mean, Adrian Lyne says that it's kind of intentional how it turned out. But I mean, it might develop a cult following in the years to come.
It could, but we often will rewatch a film before we review it, and I think neither of us really wanted to.
We didn't really care with this one. There are some
Yeah.
interesting things in the film anyway. I mean, you know, the main two actors ended up, Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas, ended up having a relationship after the filming.
Indeed.
I mean, it probably developed during filming, but
And it lasted till about when the film came out.
Yeah.
Post sort of COVID, all the lockdowns.
I
It was
mean,
quite funny, really.
most of you probably have heard about it. I mean, they were quite a sort of well-known couple for a while there. But yeah, it ended anyway.
You do wonder what sort of went on with that relationship. Does Ben Affleck kind of like that whole cuckolding thing? So, I mean, the story is basically about a husband and a wife that kind of hate each other, but they don't want to break up because of their child, who the wife doesn't really even seem to care about.
Very unlikable characters.
Which
is common with this genre, though.
Yeah, but there's always some characters that I mean, Jeremy Irons and Lolita is certainly not very likable. Yeah, you're right.
But Ben Affleck's character was interesting in that he was so kind of muted in a way, and he kind of...
muted, but also very violent.
Yeah.
In these little bursts.
That's true.
It's very strange. I mean, I like the scenes with the snails.
The snail wrangling.
Lovely. That was so
beautiful,
weird.
and it reminds me, I feel like perhaps the character was based on Patricia Highsmith, the author whose diaries I have here. I don't know if you can see her with a cat there, but she used to carry snails around in her handbag because she preferred them to the company of humans.
And her life was kind of like an erotic psychosexual thriller. A lot of her lovers, when they broke up, a couple of them killed themselves.
2 of them did, yeah.
So that's not very good odds. So
No.
she was a very unusual person, and I did think maybe there was a little bit of that coming through.
And she wrote kind of detective fiction that was very erotic as well. I mean, she wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley and Strangers on a Train, which was adapted by Hitchcock. So, you know, I mean, Hitchcock is a huge influence on all of these films that we're going to be talking about.
Yes, definitely.
So I think that she was definitely probably an influence there for the Ben Affleck character.
Can you imagine a world without Hitchcock? Where would we be? What would have happened? It would have happened eventually. But so yeah, Deepwater. It was really odd because there's this term called cuckolding, or being a cuck, where like husbands enjoy their wives being with other people. And it doesn't seem like this was the case. Ben Affleck certainly didn't enjoy, but he tolerated her flirting with and being all over these young men in front of all their friends. So in some ways I wondered if it was some sort of a game where she sort of like flaunted these guys so that he would kill them, and maybe they enjoyed that sexually. Maybe that was some sort of dynamic. But it was very clumsy and kind of, they had lots of threads that were kind of interesting but didn't go anywhere. Characters that were kind of really just filler. Yeah, and I don't know, it wasn't deep at all.
No,
Shallow like the scene at the end with where Ben Affleck gets up to. This is basically a puddle where he tries to get rid of a body. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but
well, there'll be a few spoilers today.
A few spoilers.
But yeah, one of their friends was played by the actor Tracy Letts, who's pretty interesting. He's a screenwriter in real life, and he wrote a few films for William Friedkin, who we'll get to on our list today. He wrote Bug and Killer Joe, and but he always sort of plays these curmudgeons, grumpy sort of old men. He was in Wiener Dog and
Wiener Dog's so weird.
But anyway, he's a good actor. I mean, he was one of the highlights for me of this film.
Yeah, I agree. He was definitely, it was good with him turning up. And he was probably one of the only necessary extraneous characters. Oh, and another interesting thing is we finished watching the 2 seasons of Euphoria, which is a really gorgeous looking sort of, And so Nate from that turns up because the screenwriter, the director of Euphoria has helped write the screenplay for this film.
Sam Levinson.
So that was another thing that we thought, that could be quite good. But he is good. He has a little style over substance. So, I mean, but they're all stylistic, these sort of films.
They are. I mean, that's a big part of the attraction.
So I suppose we'll rate it because we want to talk about other things. So I'm going to give it 2 hearts out of 5 because it looked kind of pretty. I like the snails. It was better than your average crappy Hollywood movie. So it gets 2.
I'd give it probably 2.5, but I'll be generous and give it a 3, so it gets a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10 hearts. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's not the worst. I mean, it kind of is the worst, but that kind of makes it good in some ways. So I reckon it needs a 9.
I'll definitely probably enjoy watching this film again because it's so bad that it might be good on repeated viewing.
It is. It's confusing. It's weird and confusing, and I don't understand their relationship whatsoever. But All right, so righty-ho. So we'll first cover the movies that
Adrian Lyne's
done.
So maybe 9.5 weeks.
9.5 weeks. So I finally watched that for the first time very recently for this video. And I forced myself to watch 50 Shades of Grey, which I really didn't want to do. I did that again recently because, oh man, I just did not want to see it. And it was truly ghastly. I was so surprised because people act like it's like a really sexy movie. And it's like, what, he smacks her and she gets upset and runs away. It's like, this is not a sexy film. The
Dakota Johnson is pretty good though.
Yeah, she's all right. But
I like her because of the Luca Guadagnino connection, you know. She's good in Suspiria.
She's really good. I didn't want to see anything with her in it after I had chosen 50 Shades of Grey. But of course, with 9.5 weeks, that was the original 50 Shades of Grey. And it's much edgier. It's so much edgier and it's so much more erotically charged. So, but I still think it was quite a silly film. There's a scene, I think, in one of the 50 Shades. I watched like 2.5. I just couldn't finish the third. Where she's like, there's some sort of like underwear or something being exchanged in a restaurant, and that happened in 9.5 weeks. So I was like, okay, well, so 9.5 weeks, watch that instead of 50 Shades of Grey, because 50 Shades of Grey is the most vanilla stuff I've ever seen, and the sex scenes are just like, oh wow, he's just going to ram her straight away, and it's going to give her heaps of pleasure. Like, there's nothing interesting about that. I thought that the scenes with the food in 9.5 weeks was just
quite
kind
ridiculous,
of just ridiculous and gross. Who wants milk spilling all over them? But I mean, it was kind of playful, but
quite iconic though.
It is iconic. I mean, Mickey Rourke and
pre-decline.
Pre-decline.
He had quite an interesting trajectory. As you know, after that film, he became like a sort of leading man, sort of a real ladies' man. Apparently, lots of people would come up to him on the street, saying how sexy he was in that film. But he ended up getting into boxing and kind of ruining his looks because he was a bad boxer and he got really badly beat up.
He's an interesting guy.
And he's had a lot of plastic surgery since then, as you probably know in that film, The Wrestler. He looks like quite a different person. Very good.
That's sad and beautiful. I really loved that. And Kim Basinger, who's a weird looking person. Weird. Some of these actresses are supposed to be super hot, like Glenn Close. I'm like, I don't believe. Or Michael Douglas. He's not a sexy man. He's not good looking. I don't get any of these. It's strange the people that were cast as being these really hot people that we're supposed to think were really attractive. And I look at them now, I'm like, really? That's supposed to be.
But Michael Douglas, I think he gets cast because he played Gordon Gekko in Oliver Stone's Wall Street, which was a very unlikable character, and I think he gets cast as these unlikable characters and
with young hot wives, like half his age.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
You say that, that this film is quite edgy, but it actually 9.5 weeks, was a lot edgier before it was edited down, because apparently the original edit of the film was 5 hours, and Kim Basinger, even though that she says Adrian Lyne was quite manipulative emotionally when directing them, that this is actually her favourite film that she's been in.
Yeah.
And she actually owns 14 hours of deleted scenes from the film that the producers have given her because she that it basically don't want anyone else to see this footage because it's quite, they thought that it might be potentially emotionally damaging to the public. So I kind of wonder what the hell's in these. What?
Because this is pretty full on in the film. I mean, the final cut. I think it's straight away. I thought this is a really unhealthy relationship. It's actually a really good film to watch if you want to know all the red flags in a relationship. So they start on really hot and heavy. He's giving all these really expensive gifts. It's all this love bombings going on. I thought this is not going to end well, and it did not, which you can probably imagine.
Apparently, one of these scenes that were deleted was the two of them in that elevator, and they hold this like a stick up. They hold up this yuppie kind of banker guy, and apparently Kim Basinger holds like a knife to his throat or something, and they just found that, test screenings found that very unwholesome, and it made the characters really unlikable. But I thought it would have been quite interesting.
That would have been interesting. So I mean, it's certainly a film. It's an interesting film. Wow, finally saw that. And I think they talk about 50 Shades of Grey being about an abusive relationship with some red flags, but 9.5 weeks is way more problematic.
Different kettle of fish.
But it's quite gorgeous. It's got some lovely, stills that you can translate. And,
it's very 80s. I mean, I'd probably give it a similar rating to Deep Water, but at a maybe a teeny bit more,
I'll
just
give it
because
more.
it
I'll give it
looks more
3.
beautiful.
3 hearts out of 5. Definitely, because it's got some gorgeous looking scenes, very photographic.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. So I would rate it a lot higher than Deepwater, which wasn't really a lot of fun. It wasn't really much fun.
So 6 out of 10.
So you give it 3 as well.
Yeah.
6. Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Next up is Unfaithful by Adrian Lyne again.
His most recent film before he did Deepwater.
With Richard Gere, who there's that myth that a lot of people might have heard that where he was sticking a gerbil up his ass.
Apparently.
Possibly. I mean, who knows if
I
it's
think it's
real
a
or not.
really mean rumor. He seems like
It's
a
mean,
lovely
but it
man.
could be true, though. I mean, it's kind of interesting.
I don't know. Goodness knows where these rumors come from.
I mean, it
Poor
probably
Richard.
is fake because, I mean, Gere and gerbil are like spelt the same. Maybe someone's just making it up. Play on words.
I hope no one's ever actually done that. It's very disturbing.
I'm sure they have.
But yeah, that was a good film. Not terribly memorable, but it was interesting.
It's it's still a sort of solid entry in that genre. I think Adrian Lyne is always good. She's really good in that film. She was great in Rumblefish earlier on in her career. J-Lo tried to get that role, but she was very disappointed that she didn't get it.
Good. No, I think it was a better choice to cast.
Richard Gere, I mean, he isn't one of my favorite actors, but he's been in a couple of really good films. I think he's brilliant in Paul Schrader's American Gigolo, which is another sort of erotic thriller, early 80s one. And he was really good in one of my favorite films, Internal Affairs, which is more of a sort of a cop thriller. He plays one of the most sort of evil villains ever, really.
But he's so cool, calm and collected, so it's quite intimidating, isn't it?
But we'll get to that film later, because it's sort of on the list as well.
So yeah, Unfaithful, I'd give it 2.5, 3. Yeah, it's good. It's alright, it's solid.
Yeah, I'd give it probably 3.5, but say again 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Yep.
Yep.
Then we've got Indecent Proposal, which I saw a long time ago, and I kind of wanted to hate it, but I actually found it quite interesting. I mean, I like the premise. I like the exploration of the premise that you offer a beautiful woman with her husband some money and they're poor and what could happen. I thought that was actually quite entertaining, and it's got some really beautiful cinematography, and Demi Moore and Morty Harrelson are great. Yeah, I mean, I'd give that maybe slightly better. Well, it's better in some ways.
It's probably the first film I saw by Adrian Lyne. It has a great score by John Barry.
Yeah, the score really helps.
Yeah, and I was struck by how different the acting seemed. It seemed a lot more natural and sort of raw and gritty.
I need to see it again, but I think I would rate that one slightly higher than the others.
Yeah, I would too.
So 3.5, 4 maybe?
Yeah, I'd give it 3.5 as well, so 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that sounds about fair. Yeah, so it's slightly better, and I do remember scenes from it, and I did remember thinking about it quite a lot, which is, great, interesting concept. And then we've got
Lolita.
Oh, this is such a good film, and it makes me so uncomfortable sometimes to admit how much I love it, but my God, it's such a good film. It really is. It's so beautiful. The score is so
Ennio
gorgeous.
Morricone.
It's just...
I was saying before that it's probably, I might even prefer it to the Kubrick version, which is a very kind of, controversial thing to say.
They're very close in my mind, as much as I love Kubrick.
The Kubrick version is one of David Lynch's favourite films of all time.
It's very good.
I know, I do love that film, but I get more of an emotional reaction from the...
And it's those gorgeous pastel colours that they use in it. And I mean, Jeremy Irons is just so good. He really is.
And Melanie Griffith, she's amazing.
Perfect as the mother.
Yeah.
So I would have to give that 5 out of 5 hearts, because it's one of my favourite films. I mean, it's really problematic in some ways.
Speaking of the problematic nature of it, with both films, the Kubrick one and the Lyon one, the character in the book was 12, but for the film they made her 14.
And she was played by she's still very young, the actress.
She was 15.
Yeah, that's
so they had to. They apparently had to put a pillow between her and Jeremy Irons when she was sitting on his lap, just because she was 15 and she was like
This
underage.
like really like she's fully
Yeah.
naked in some scenes,
It's
scrambling
pretty
out of the
intense
bed,
material.
It
But,
really is.
but what I was going to say is that, so they changed the age in the films from 12 to 14. And Melanie Griffith, who's in the Adrian Lyne version, she was 14 when she met Don Johnson, who she ended up being married to, who's Dakota Johnson's
Whoa.
father from,
That's
Dakota
nuts.
Johnson from 50 Shades. So she is almost like Lolita in real life, which is pretty crazy.
You can't get away with that anymore. That was
No.
very much a 90s phenomenon. And I'm kind of very grateful for that, because it does make me feel really uneasy seeing such a young girl play such a sexualized role.
She won, I think it was, she won, Dominic Swain, who played Lolita, won the Best Kiss of the Year award at the MTV Awards.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah.
A bit like in The Crush, which we're also quickly going to cover. The Crush has a kiss with, what's his name? The guy from
Carrie
Princess Bride.
Elwes.
Carrie and Alicia Silverstone, who's very young, and they share a kiss, and that got Kiss of the Year. So, different times, folks, when this sort of stuff was getting awarded.
Yeah.
Lolita, I'm giving it 5 out of 5 hearts, because it's honestly I love it so much.
I mean, I'd probably give it 4.
Okay, so 9 out of 10 hearts for Lolita. Sorry about it, I still love it. I'm just trying to not think about those problematic aspects and just appreciate how gorgeous it is. And Fatal Attraction.
Oh, yeah. So this is Adrian Lyne. This is probably his most famous, erotic thriller, the one that really kind of made that genre bankable, I guess. There's that famous bunny in a boiler scene.
Glenn Close is so scary.
It was a very brave performance. Like, she made herself very unattractive and very kind of scary, and she did a lot of the nudes. Well, she did all of the nude scenes in that film. There were no body doubles used because she insisted that they weren't like sort of manipulative nude scenes. Like, they weren't erotic nude scenes. They were part of the storyline.
Yeah, she gave a really powerfully unhinged performance.
Yeah.
Quite remarkable. And they had some good chemistry, those two, from what I can remember.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. She even has kept the knife that was repeatedly used during the filming. She keeps it in her kitchen, which is quite funny. I wonder if she cooks with it. She would actually
quite cool, actually.
She wouldn't be able to
respect Glenn Close. That's pretty cool.
She wouldn't be able to cook with it because it's made apparently out of wood and paper.
So cool.
She loves the craftsmanship of the thing.
Wow, that's so cool.
She says that to this day, still people come up to her on the street and say, "Thank you for saving my marriage," for that.
Because if they cheated, they might turn out to be a psycho. Kills your bunny rabbit.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, that was good. 3.5 for that one. 3.5 hearts.
Wow. Yeah, I'd probably give it maybe a little less than Lolita. So I guess like 3 or something.
Yeah, 6.5.
That
sounds about right. And the last one that he's done, which was, we're not going to talk about Jacob's Ladder. We might do a whole entire video on that.
Yeah, it's quite a different sort of film.
Totally different, but that was the only film that he made that was really outside this sort of genre. And we've got Body Heat, which was William Hurt and Kathleen Turner.
That was directed by Lawrence Kasdan, though, who's...
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I thought Adrian...
No, it was 1981. So this was actually probably one of the first ever erotic well, there surely were other sort of ones in the 60s, but the first kind of 80s erotic
That
thriller.
makes sense, because when I was watching I was thinking this is a bit different from Adrian, but because it's not Adrian.
No, it's quite a different direction. I'm not that familiar with the other films by that director, but he did write one of the Star Wars films and he did write one of the Indiana Jones films. So he's almost like a writer director for hire in some ways. But this was the only sort of thriller that he made.
Yeah, and it's sweaty. It's a sweaty film.
It's very sweaty, but did you know that it was actually freezing temperatures while they made the film?
That makes no sense.
So
That's
they
weird.
just had to spray themselves with sweat and just shivered
I can't see the
actors
goose-
of the
I suppose if they had goosebumps you could say this is sexual chemistry, but that's so weird that it was actually cold, because it looks like it's really hot.
It makes me feel sweaty when I watch it. So they did a good job.
They did a very good job. Couldn't they at least put a whole heap of a bunch of heaters on them and stuff, at least in the internal scenes? You'd think, just to make them. But yeah, Sweetie and William, dear old William, he's unfortunately passed away
died,
recently.
so
That's
really sad.
Because he's such a great actor. He's given us some incredible performances. So
which performances?
I loved Altered States
Yeah.
in particular. I love that movie. And I mean, I love it, you know, now I can only imagine how much I would have loved it when it first came out because of the effects, but I just love any exploration of psychedelics and altered states of mind and just the imagery in that is so cool. And he's just so good. His character is so
Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Yes, I really love
That's
Kiss
a
of
great
the Spider
film.
Woman.
He's very, very memorable in Cronenberg's History of Violence, just in that last part of the film.
Yeah.
I think he was great in that.
You can't really go wrong, really. Pretty much anything he's in, he's pretty good.
No, he's a very solid actor.
So we've got a lot of really great performances out of Dear William.
Apparently for the nude scenes with him and Kathleen Turner, they performed all of the nude sequences themselves, and to make it apparently less kind of uncomfortable for the crew, they got all of the crew members who were making the films lined up, and they introduced themselves to all of the crew members naked, completely naked, just to kind of...
Did the crew members get naked as well?
No, they didn't, but just the two actors were.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
It's a good way to...
It's
like,
quite brave.
You're going to get to see my bodies. I mean, these are quite famous actors.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're still kind of like, here's our bodies. You can look at our bodies. You're going to see a lot of these bodies, and it sort of desexualizes it in some way. That's actually a really good idea.
There's a great early performance by Ted Danson in this film as well. He looks quite different because he's so boyish, but he also apparently his mother. I mean, this is a kind of silly bit of trivia, but his mother walked out of the first screening. She saw a Body Heat because it was quite sexual.
Outrageous.
But she kind of lied to him and said, for years and years and years that she had seen it and thought it was great. But,
that's so sweet.
She probably told him just before she died or something that she hadn't actually watched the whole film.
Oh, please. Actually, I was just thinking we should stop it here and do 2 parts because this is going to be really, really long. So I think we'll just stop here and then we'll do the second part. Yeah, I think we should do that because it's going to be freaking long. We're only about halfway there yet and we're already at 26 minutes. So coming right back at you with part 2. Do you want to turn the camera off, please? See you in a minute.
See ya.